I think Cortez is being very disrespectful to somebody that's been there a long time. I deal with Nancy Pelosi a lot, and we go back and forth, and it's fine. But I think that a group of people is being very disrespectful to her.
Well, who saw that coming? President Trump defending Speaker Pelosi amid her feud with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This after the Democratic upstart suggested that the Speaker's criticisms of her were rooted in race. A number of Democratic lawmakers now rushing to Pelosi's side. Missouri's William Lacey Clay, who sits on both the Congressional Black and Progressive caucuses, letting loose on Pelosi's critics, saying, quote, "How dare they tried to play the race card at this point. It shows the weakness of their argument. It's damaging to this party and the internal workings of the Democratic Party." And this from presidential candidate Kamala Harris.
That's not my experience with Nancy Pelosi. And I've known her and worked with her for years. I've known her to be very respectful of women of color and very supportive of them.
Meantime, Ocasio-Cortez upping the ante, saying Pelosi's remarks could put her and the fellow members of her so-called squad in danger.
It's singling out 4 individuals. And knowing the media environment that we're operating in, knowing the amount of death threats that we get, knowing the amount of concentration of attention, I think it's just worth asking why.
So when her staff member, I'm sorry, Katie, when her
She's worried
staff
a
member
concentration of
tweeted
attention?
out that tweet that's now since been deleted, and Pelosi talked about it, calling Blue Dog and moderate members and new members of the Democratic Party, calling them segregationists. She doesn't think that that puts them in the crosshairs somehow?
I'm sorry. I have to say, it takes a lot of chutzpah for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to complain about the concentration of media attention.
Right.
As she is doing an interview in the hallway to get more attention.
That's her whole thing, is getting attention.
Yes.
That's her entire thing.
And I see Jessica over here, and you're just laughing and nodding because...
It really upsets me. I wrote a piece about it for Fox News up on the homepage right now. Drive that traffic. It's very frustrating. No one in their right mind would have used those kinds of terms, linking them, first of all, to our moderate Democrats or to Nancy Pelosi. She has elevated people of color into some of the most high-ranking positions, committee assignments, subcommittee chairs,
some to the
Whip
squad.
Clyburn, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, all got the committee assignments that they wanted. And I think making that argument about the danger, it so distracts from the actual danger. Like when there was that poster of Ilhan Omar around the 9/11 bombing that went up in Virginia. Those are instances where you are concerned about people's health and safety.
Or a shooter at a congressional baseball game.
But Anna,
I mean, come on.
Isn't this just the dog eat dog, chickens coming home to roost on the identity politics play? Because Nancy Pelosi has been accusing just last week the president of having racist MAGA hats, and now all of a sudden she's being accused falsely of this race card, and now all of a sudden Democrats are outraged about that card being pulled.
Well, I think the infighting in the Democratic Party is only going to help the Republicans. I think that's the biggest takeaway from all this. But when I see AOC on our air and everybody's air, I would like to see the sound bites back to back and see how much time she's actually getting. Is she just trying to make headlines and make a name for herself and go on up the ladder? And is that what some of these other Democrats are doing as well, looking toward 2020 and trying to get their name up there when there's, what, 24 of them just trying to
I happen to, and
themselves?
Harris mentioned this earlier in the block when we were talking about what's going on in these migrant detention centers. I do not doubt her passion and conviction and belief in the causes that she champions for 1 second. I think that this is misplaced. I think that what's going on here is you also have 4 people who have never governed in the minority.
Yeah, but
and that
she came up with a 14-page Green New Deal, but we're not seeing the 14-page border crisis deal.
I'm just saying I don't.
An opportunity, Jessica.
That may be.
Since she's driving so much concentrated attention.
I'm just saying I don't want to make it out that she's only out there for attention.
And I said
that was my only point there.
Quick last word
if you look at who they are primarying, the Democratic Socialists or the Squad or whatever we're looking at, black and Hispanic members of Congress who they're targeting. So just take a rest, folks. It's Friday. Lighten up.
We are pursuing a new option to ensure a complete and timely count of the non-citizen population. I am hereby ordering every department and agency in the federal government to provide the Department of Commerce with all requested records regarding the number of citizens and non-citizens in our country. They must furnish all legally accessible records in their possession immediately.
So that from late yesterday afternoon, President Trump reversing course, ending his effort to add that citizenship question on the census, saying he'll get the information another way. Here to take on that, a long list of questions, Hogan Gidley, White House Deputy Press Secretary. Hogan, good morning, and thank you for coming back to our program here.
Thank you so much. Before we get into the census, can I just make the point, though, our prayers are with the people of the Gulf Coast and Louisiana who are in the path of this horrible storm. A lot of rain down there. I have a lot of friends in that region. And listen to the president's tweet. Pay attention to your local authorities and don't try to brave those floodwaters. It's a dangerous situation.
Words
and we'll be on the lookout for it.
Yeah, you bet. And we hope to get that word out throughout the day and into the weekend as well. Thank you for that, Hogan. On the census, what does this new strategy accomplish?
Well, it actually gets to the information the president wants. It's following through on a promise, and that's finding out who is in this country. I think the American people have a right to know. And so when you say, do Democrats want to know this information? The answer is no. Does the president want to know this information? The answer is yes. So the real question that reporters, I think, are missing is, why does Donald Trump want to know who's in this country? The real question is, why don't Democrats? The American people have a right to know this information. It impacts so much across this country. These people are coming into our country. They're not citizens of the great United States of America, and it impacts our neighborhoods, our communities, our schools, our law enforcement, our healthcare system. We need to know this information. Democrats don't seem to care about it. This president does.
A lot of people wanted you to continue the fight. Did the White House concede on this, Hogan?
No, he's following through on a promise. Absolutely not. Listen, the courts held things up. They've done that from the beginning of this administration. And the president said, I'm going to look at all options within my legal authority to find out this data that impacts trillions of dollars in this country. He's doing it in a manner that is completely lawful, completely legal, and we've got to find out the information. So he's going across the spectrum to all of the agencies, to every little nook and cranny of the federal government to find out who is in this country, who our citizens are and who our non-citizens are. He's doing it.
He did not back down on this. That's the case you're making.
No, absolutely. The Supreme Court even ruled this question could be on there, but it was impossible to get it on in time for printing. We looked at inserts. We looked at all types of options, and the president said, listen, I'm not going to be beholden to courts anymore. I have the legal authority to find out this information. The American people deserve to know it, and so I'm moving forward with this method.
Next topic, the ICE raids reported to take place on Sunday. Will that happen, Hogan?
Listen, I'm not going to get ahead of any law enforcement operations. What I can tell you is I think the American people would be shocked to find out there are more than 1 million people in this country who have gone through the legal judicial process. They've had their day in court, and judges have ordered them removed from this country. More than 1 million of those people need to go home. And so it's it should be no surprise to anybody listening. The president wants to fix our immigration system, and one way we do that legally is for ICE to take those people who a judge has said need to go home and to send them back home.
Oh, here's the headline that really got a lot of attention this week, New York Times. U.S. prepares to arrest thousands of immigrant family members. That's the headline. Is that not true?
Could you imagine? Well, first of all, listen, again, so many of these people don't have a right to be in this country. They've already had their day in court. It's one set of laws applied differently to different groups of people, in the sense that if you're an American citizen, you violate the law and then violate a court order, there are serious consequences. If you're an illegal immigrant and you violate the law and violate a court order, Democrats are saying not only does the law not apply to you, but we're going to try to change the laws in the future so that you face no punishment whatsoever for breaking our laws. It's absolutely ridiculous, and we're trying to fix that.
Okay, one last question on this. From the Department of Justice yesterday, they tell our Jake Gibson, ICE is apprehending people illegally here every day all across the country. That was the quote we got. How many every day, Hogan?
How many every day what? I'm sorry.
Are apprehended who are here illegally already?
I'm not sure. That's a question I think ICE would have to answer. But the fact is, I mean, they do everything they can to get into these communities and find where they are hiding, the folks who don't have a right to be here. And I think the real question here is, why are Democrats opposed to this action? Why should someone who has been ruled by a judge not to have the ability or, I guess, the legal right to be in this country, left in this country? And one more thing. Can you believe the fact that so many on the left want to tip off those who are the subject of some type of raid? I mean, could you imagine if they did that to the NYPD and told a crack dealer, hey, heads up, man, the cops are coming in to take you out and to arrest you? I mean, think of the danger that poses for law enforcement officials across the country to allow them to kind of
understand the point you make. Just put a fine point on this. You're not denying that they will not happen this weekend.
Oh, I'm not confirming or denying any law enforcement action
I want to get to two more
whatsoever.
topics quickly here on this. In the economy, we hit 27,000 in the Dow yesterday. Well, what a number that is. I know you like to tout the economy right now. Very strong numbers out there. The president's going to try and sell the Mexico-Canada deal. Will that deal happen soon? And what are the headwinds you see in this economy now, Hogan?
We sure hope so. Listen, the president has tried to protect our farmers. One of the most interesting moments in the President Xi meeting at the G20 was when President Xi looked at President Trump and said, listen, if I can say anything about you, you are a great protector of the American farmer. And that's what the USMCA does. We hope that Democrats will vote on that to protect our farmers. But I was looking up some statistical data before I came on today. 55 million Americans have 401ks. 35 million Americans have pension plans. 25 million have IRAs. This stock market rise is due to President Trump and his economic policies. It's the deregulation, the tax cuts. It affects everybody in this country for the better. And I'll tell you, the great Larry Kudlow often says the most underreported story during this president's administration is the booming economy. But it's tough to ignore when we're setting records every day, and it's because of the president's policies, and we look for that to continue.
We'll see on the trade deal. You mentioned China. We'll see what happens on Mexico and Canada. I've only got time for one more question. From thehill.com, Donald Trump Jr., here's his headline. Donald Trump will win the Democratic Party's civil war. You see this ongoing feud among House members in the Democratic Party. How does the White House see that?
Forgive me, first of all, the helicopter's flying overhead here. Listen, it's very interesting to watch Democrats, eat their own young here. We've been the subject of this on the Republican side for a long time. When we talk about substance, the Democrats can't counter with their substance of making America socialist and Green New Deals and infanticide. Instead, they just decry the hollow charge of racism because they've got nothing to sell to the American people. Now you're seeing the infighting on their side, which is completely fascinating. They have a simple disagreement on policy, and AOC calls the Speaker of the House a racist. This is comical to watch from our side, but quite frankly, a little bit sad. Because when we start to talk about the record unemployment numbers for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, all those things that we're doing in this White House, all they do is say, nope, it's racism. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's funny to watch from our side, the Democrat infighting.
Ocasio-Cortez was women of color. That was her comment.
Absolutely, which is a complete inference that Nancy Pelosi is racist. And that's what's so funny about this, is that everything they've been using, the tactics they've been deploying against the Republican Party for decades, is now coming back to bite them. Regardless of that, the substance we have to tout to the American people proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the president's policies are working, and every time we put that in their face, all they can do is cry out in a hollow manner racism.
I've got to run. Thank you for your time. In the hallway yesterday, she was caught on camera saying that she denied calling Nancy Pelosi a racist. Nonetheless, that feud continues, and I hope you come back soon. Thank you, Hogan Gidley from the White House, North on there, with the helicopter and all. Thank you for your time.